Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to the next episode of the StaleFace podcast. If you enjoy this podcast, if you listen to some of our previous episodes, and if you've enjoyed what's happening, make sure that you like, comment, share, and subscribe to it. It helps us out a lot, and we'll be reading reviews on air if you guys leave one. So, do those things. I am one of your co-hosts. My name is Cooks, at Life by Cooks on Instagram, half of at StaleFaceiNC. You should follow me on Instagram. I post every so often. I used to post daily, but I don't anymore. My co-host is with me here, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Tecumseh X, and I don't know if I still need to spell it out for everyone, but I will if need be.
I was going to say, you probably should, because
it is TECUMSEH_X, and So we have the dog. Both of our dogs are in Tecumseh's apartment right now. And if you ever want to know what it's like to be a parent without really being a parent, go get a puppy, because they're into everything. And they decide not to listen, and they just do what they want to do. And they just do whatever. Today is a little bit more informal, as y'all can tell, but we'll be talking about goal setting. It's something that we're doing right now. We have a big meeting, a meeting that can turn into a lot of things for us that we're preparing for. So one of the things that we want to do is make sure that our goals are set out, laid out, and be able to present those to the important people that we're talking to, so that people can get behind us and know that we want what we want to do, and see if they want to get behind it. So why don't you tell people? You go ahead. Yeah, and I definitely think that listening to this podcast will give a lot of people a good insight on, what this brand is about, what we are about as individuals, more importantly. And, I think it's a cause and a very powerful mission that we have that anybody honestly could get behind, because it can affect generation after generation, and motivate generation after generation. And with us being we definitely can and would like to be positive influences on people to come way after us, way after we're gone. We're trying to build the legacy now and trying to turn things around in our personal lives, and more importantly, lives of people around us later on. So because right now what we're doing with the brand is we found our calling, we found the thing that we want to do, and by documenting this and having our podcast and showing the interviews and things like that. Sorry if you can hear my dog. But we want to be able to show you guys that this is possible for you too. If you find a cause that you're passionate about, if you find something that you want to use to change the world, it is definitely possible. And so being that example is something that we have a passion to do, and also just going through what we want to do. And as far as our brand and innovation, I've learned a lot in the past 6 months. 6 months ago, if you had asked me anything about running a business, I would have said, okay. But just going on this journey has opened my mind to so many different things and put me in touch with so many different people. Just people that have made millions upon millions of dollars, people that are running successful businesses, learning different things that I haven't, and it's just been an incredible journey. And we want to be able to share this with you and have you come along with us as we continue to progress, and as we continue to make this world a better place with StaleFaced, our brand. So going into goal setting, one thing that I've done with my own goals is use two different things. SMART goals, and SMART is an acronym. It stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound goals. So a lot of people have goals that kind of sounds like this. I want to be rich, and that's a very vague goal. It's a goal. It might be something that you want to achieve, but in and of itself, the way it's written, it's very vague.
So the first thing that we would tackle is it being specific. So instead of saying, I want to be rich, go ahead and how rich do you want to be? Do you want to have $10 million? Do you want to have $1 million? What is your definition of rich? And so getting that solved gets a goal from being vague to being specific. And also, go ahead.
Yeah, you definitely have to make your goals specific, which is something that, we're definitely learning as we go, because we have objectives and things that we want to obtain, but we're currently learning how to even narrow those goals down into even more specific things. Mm-hmm. And that's what you really got to do. You got to tell yourself, for those of you that don't like your current job and want to do something else, you'll say, man, I want to get out of this job and go do something else. Well, you have to really set your mind to a specific time, and say, I want to get out of my job in 6 months. I want to get out of my job in 2 weeks. I want to get out of my job in X amount of time. That way, you hear yourself say that, because what people don't realize a lot of times is when what other people hear you say, you hear yourself as well. Mm-hmm. So when you hear yourself say things, it cycles in your mind. Yep. In your conscious and what you hear, and in your subconscious, because you're taking up. You're continually right. You're putting that particular thought in a space in your brain, mm-hmm. and you're taking that up. So you have to definitely give yourself a specific goal in mind. Yep. And even if maybe you don't get say I don't want to be at this particular spot anymore in 6 months. Even if it's not exactly 6 months then, but you're, close, then you're good, because you're closer than you were if you just said, hey, I just want to stop doing this, or I want to have this much money, or I want to, affect this many people, or have, do whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm. And it goes with the quote, I think it's Benjamin Franklin, don't quote me on this, but if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So you need to go in with specific goals and a plan to achieve them, so that you can get closer to that goal. The second thing is you want it to be measurable. So if you can't measure something, you can't improve it. So if you're not going through your day and saying, how am I getting better at X, Y, Z? If your goal is for you to make 100 free throws in a row, but you're not counting how many free throws you're making every single day, you'll never get better. You'll never know if you're getting better at that goal, because it's not measurable. So you want to break down your goal into measurable increments. Find a bigger goal and say, okay, I want to work somewhere in 6 months. What do you have to do to work somewhere else in 6 months? What do you have to do to that? You have to say, okay, I need to send out 5 resumes a day for the next 2 weeks. That's a very measurable goal, because it's either you did it or you didn't. So you send out your 5 resumes every day for the next 2 weeks, and that's very measurable. You can either say, okay, I sent out 5 this day. Okay, I sent out 6 this day. I sent out 4 this day. Okay, I fell behind on this particular day. I overachieved on this particular day. I got right on my goal on this particular day. And that keeps you accountable, because you're looking at it yourself and you're saying, I, as me, did this, or I failed this particular day, or I succeeded this particular day. And it helps you to keep accountable. You know anything?
And on top of that, when you do that, going back to one of our earlier podcasts, when we talked about how, anybody can be an engineer. When you're doing that, you're actually engineering mm-hmm. in your mind, because you're qualitatively engineering your plans and things like that. And calculations do not have to be as complicated as the word itself, because when people hear the word calculation, they get intimidated automatically. But you're just making things measurable. You're breaking it down into smaller goals and smaller numbers that you can achieve in a 24-hour period during the day. You can spread to put out 5 resumes a day in 24 hours, even if it's every couple of hours. Just make sure you put out one every 2-3 hours, and you got 5 a day. Yep. And there you go. You've met your goal. You specified it, you executed it, and there you go. And when you want to increase that, if you want to increase that, you're already in a habit. Thoughts will become, actions, and actions become habitual, and that's just how things happen. You got to consciously tell yourself a lot of things are dependent upon mindset, and what you set your mind to, you really can achieve. Spiritually, psychologically, and scientifically, you can do it.
And biologically.
Yes.
So it's one of those things where when you're having your goals and you're progressing towards it, and you might feel like, I know for me, sometimes it feels like, this ain't adding up to anything. This isn't doing anything. But you have to look at your goal and say, hey, am I getting closer to this goal every day? Yes or no? Am I reaching the standard I've set for myself to get better every day? Yes or no? You have to answer that question. Like I said, there's a quote. I think it's in Darren Hardy's The Compound Theory. If you get better by 1% every day, you'll be doubly good in 47 days because of that compound interest.
Yes,
so
doubly.
Doubly. You'll be 100% better than you were before in 47 days. So it's not always about making leaps and bounds. Sometimes you have to go through the mud. Sometimes you have to truck through the trenches. Sometimes you have to grind through whatever you're studying or working through to get better. But trust me, that 1% will add up over a time period. And the next step, so we have specific, measurable, and the next one is the A. So it's actionable. You need to make sure that your goals are things that you can actually take action over. I know it sounds very matter-of-factly or kind of like, well, I knew that. But sometimes we set goals for ourselves that we're not able to actually act out. So our goal might be, this kind of goes against, this isn't a very good goal. We'll say to get smarter. Well, how do you get smarter? Like, in what aspect do you want to get smarter? How do you go about getting smarter? And that how you go about getting smarter is the actionable part of it. If you don't have what actions you're going to take, you'll never, your goal isn't definable enough for you to progress towards it. You being smarter could be smarter academically. It could be smarter in a particular area. It could be smarter in real estate. It could be smarter in programming or something like that. But until you specify it to that degree and say, okay, I want to get better at programming by doing, I want to code 2 programs a day. I want to make sure I read 3 pages of this programming handbook a day or something like that, just for the example. Those goals are now actionable because there's steps you can take. There's boxes you can check to say, yes, I did this today. And yes, this is helping me get better. Do you have anything?
Fundamentals.
Yeah.
Fundamentals for, we both played sports and have played sports, and to get through that, and for everybody who has played a sport or even who has played an instrument or done anything that, required practice, which is pretty much 95% of everything. Fundamentals, you got to start somewhere. So, me personally, I want to learn how to fly a drone so I can eventually get my drone pilot's license. So what I do right now is I watch YouTube videos on, learning about drones, different types of drones. What are the steps? Starting at fundamentals, because my first introduction to drones, I was just thinking they were just cool little, toys to have. But now when you look at it in a professional sense, people are making,
thousands,
right, careers off of being drone pilots. And even the person who came up with the idea to implement a drone pilot's license is a intelligent individual, because that says, well, hey, these things are part of our society now, and they can get in the way of air traffic. Yeah. So let's make a regulation and set this in place for people to be able to be, I guess, quote unquote, professional drone pilots.
Yep.
And that was somebody's idea at one time, and he went down to the fundamentals of how do I get this started. So one thing